Hello students, welcome to Legacy IAS Academy. In today's video, we are going to discuss about Indo-Australian relations in detail, especially after the Prime Ministership or during the Prime Ministership of Mr. Narendra Modi. We are going to discuss that it has opened a new chapter in the relation between two countries and how the recent visit of the Australian Prime Minister Albanese is also going to affect the relation between both nations. So first of all, to give you the brief context that what is going on recently that has made us talk about this particular issue. So first of all, recently Prime Minister of Australia, Mr. Anthony Albanese, along with the Prime Minister of India, Sri Narendra Modi, has visited a cricket stadium in Ahmedabad to watch a match between Australia and Indian cricket team. And there he has quoted that the two nations have fierce but friendly sporting rivalry. Also, extending upon the same point, he has also said that at the heart of this contest is the genuine respect reflecting the affection and friendship between our people. On the field, Australia and India are competing to be the best in the world, and off the field, we are cooperating to build a better world. Also, the first in-person India-Australia annual summit will be held today, that is on the Friday. So let us try to understand first of all the brief history that why these two countries enjoy such a good relation. What are the basic principles upon which the relationship is based upon? So the first and foremost is the shared values. Both the countries are well-functioning democracy and enjoy a kind of sensitivity where pluralism is heavily respected among the nation. Second, we can also say that since both these countries at some point in time were the colony of British, thus they also enjoyed similar kind of democracy that is called as Westminster style democracy, also called as parliamentary democracy, which is quite different from the American system. Third, both countries are also member of the Commonwealth nations. Commonwealth nations are basically again a tradition that basically is binding a lot of countries across the world due to their common heritage of being ruled or we can say being a colony of the British Empire. And fourth and most important one that continuously since last 1 decade we are seeing expands in the economic engagement between two countries where the trading value has increased manifold. The second most important pillar of the relation between both nations is the common traits. For example, both countries have very strong, vibrant, secular and multicultural democracies. Both countries have a system of free and independent media, free and independent press, independent judicial system, as well as the English language, which is predominantly spoken by large percentage of India's population, as well as it is the main language or the mother tongue of the Australian people. So we try to trace back the history of development of the strong relation between two countries. We can trace it back to the time when the Cold War was about in the 1990s, and at the same time it also coincides with the strong economic reforms that happened in year 1991 under the prime ministership of PV Narasimha Rao and the finance ministership of Sriman Mohan Singh. So that time India started to open up, Indian economy started to open up, and this is also a year that led to LPG, or we can say liberalization, privatization, and globalization. And both these incidents, both these events have basically led or helped in development of a much more stronger, much more closer ties between the two nations of Australia and India. Let us look at some of the major factors that are strengthening the relations with both countries. First of all, we know that every year large number of Indian students go to Australia to pursue higher education, and this number has been continuously increasing since 1990s. Second, also both Australia for Indians and India for Australia has been a tourism hub, and the number of tourists coming and being exchanged across both countries are also continuously rising. And as we know that sporting link is also very clearly established, especially in the field of cricket. Third, we can say that ties basically evolved, especially in last 8 to 10 years, in the direction of having a strategic partnership or having a strategic relationship. And not only that, both countries are actually partner of Quad groups as well. Quad basically is a grouping that have partners such as India, US, Japan, and Australia. And the Quad basically try to maintain or ensure a rules-based order, especially in the Indo-Pacific region. And they have this common goal of ensuring that the Indo-Pacific region remains free and open from any kind of free, and we can say open from any kind of conflict. if we trace back in the recent time how and what kind of high level engagement we have seen across both countries. So first of all, we can look at year 2014. It was in this year when the Australian PM Tony Abbott has visited India, and in the same year, in the month of November, Prime Minister Modi also became the first Indian Prime Minister to make an official visit to Australia after a long hiatus of almost, we can say, 28 years. The last time before Prime Minister Modi, it was Rajiv Gandhi who visited Australia in year 1980 as a Prime Minister. And thus, not only that, Prime Minister Modi also became the first Indian PM to address a joint sitting of the Parliament of Australia. So this was a very, very notable development that both countries have seen as far as their friendship, partnership, and relationship is concerned. Then, following by some other high level development we see in the year 2020, where we have, due to COVID, Indian Australian leaders virtual summit, and it was in this virtual summit the bilateral relationship between Australia and India was elevated from having a spread partnership, which basically was concluded in year 2009, to have a comprehensive spread partnership. So this is also a very, very remarkable development that we have seen. And then most recently in year 2022, in the preceding year, we see a signing of letter of intent on migration and mobility partnership arrangement to foster the exchange of a skill, and at the same time letter of arrangement for educational qualification recognition to facilitate the mobility of students professionals. So these are very what we can say, the this particular kind of intent was very much in demand by the Indian diaspora, because it will help in ensuring a smoother mobility of the professionals from India to Australia and vice versa. And also students who have taken their degree from India, their degree will also be, their educational qualification will also be recognized by the Australian universities. So these are some recent development that has happened at the highest, or we can say, high level engagement. However, one other factor that joins both these countries together is the threat of China. So if you look at the threat of China, Australia obviously has taken a lot of stern measures against China. For example, recently Chinese telecom giant Huawei was banned from the 5G network of Australia, which was very much protested against by the Chinese government. Second, it also has called an inquiry to understand the origin of COVID-19, because many Western people or Western government believe that we can trace back the origin of COVID-19 to some lab in China. And third, Australia also has slammed strongly China's human rights record in the region of Xinjiang, where we have the ethnic Uyghur Muslim people are living, and also in the Hong Kong, to stifle the protest when the Hong Kong tried to have some sort of independence from the mainland China. Not only that, even if we talk about recently, there has been dispute between Australia and China over the control over the Solomon Islands, which again a Pacific island country. Similarly, if you look at the India is also witnessing an aggressive Chinese military incursion across the long line of actual control in the Aksai Chin region, and recently also in the northeast region of the Arunachal Pradesh and the Bhutan tri-junction. Second, India also faces the threat or feels that China is going to threaten the rules-based international order that has been working properly at least since the end of Cold War, at least since last 20-30 years, and thus it believes that the entire Indo-Pacific region may become mired in controversy and conflicts if China is not contained properly, and thus an alliance with the Australia and the Quad partnership. Now let us look back at what are the major areas of cooperation between India and Australia. So first of all, if you look at the economic aspect of the relationship, we can see that both India and Australia have signed economic cooperation and trade agreement, also called as ECTA, and this has been a very we can stand very significant development in the economic partnership, because it is the first free trade agreement that has been signed by India with any country in at least one decade. And the result of this agreement can be clearly seen if we look at the trade data, that immediate reduction of duty to zero on these spurs of Indian export to Australia, and thus almost 85% of Australian exports in value to India have been reduced to zero duty. And it is due to this reason the overall value of the trade between India and Australia, we can say, has basically shot up to $27.5 billion in year 2021, and with ECTA in coming in effect, Overall, it is believed that the overall trade volume, the trade value between both countries, both partners, will reach somewhere about $50 billion in the next 5 years. So that is something you can see the economic partnership is going to become stronger and stronger in the coming time. Second most important aspect of the cooperation between both countries are the people-to-people ties. Because we know that India has always been, at least for the last 30-40 years, the top source of skilled immigrants to Australia. And as far as the recent data is concerned, it is believed that around 9.76 lakh people in Australia have reported their ancestry as Indian origin, and it makes them the second largest group of overseas born residents in Australia. Not only that, the strength of people-to-people ties can be seen from the recent gesture of Australian government, where the Prime Minister has decided to celebrate India at 75, and thus the government illuminated more than 40 buildings across the country in the Indian tricolor to ensure the solidarity or to show the solidarity with the India and India's values. The third aspect, which is very critical aspect and vital aspect of relationship, is in the sector of education, where both countries have signed mutual recognition of educational qualifications, also called as MREQ, where the degree taken in Australian universities will be valid in India, will be considered legitimate in India, and the degrees taken in Indian universities will also be recognized by the Australian universities. Not only that, recently Deakin University and University of Wollongong of Australia has decided to open up their campuses in the gift city of Gujarat. And third, if you look at the number of students, Indian students who have migrated to Australia, it is somewhere about 1 who are currently pursuing higher education degrees in different Australian universities. And this number makes Indian student the second largest cohort of foreign students in Australia. So that is where we can also see there is huge scope of strengthening the partnership in the sector of education, especially the higher education. The fourth and the most important one, we also enjoy a good deal of deep cooperation with both countries, and both countries have recently concluded mutually logistic support agreement where the vessels of both countries can dock into each other's port and can undergo refurbishment or any kind of renovation, or we can say any kind of requirement of modification that can be done at the port of each other country. This is very similar to the ATM agreement that we have signed with USA, which is called as Logistic Exchange Memorandum of Agreement. Second, Australia is also one of the major countries with which India has a 2+2 ministerial dialogue system, which 2+2 refers to ministerial dialogue between the Foreign Ministry and the Defense Ministry of India and Australia. Along with this, Russia, US, and the Japan are the other partners. Third, India also participates frequently with Australia in the Mala exercises along with the United States, and also recently for this particular year, Australia has invited Indian forces to join it in its most important site that is called as Talisman Sabre, which basically incorporates Army, Air Force as well as the naval wing of the Australian military. So India is going to become a participant in that also by the end of this particular year. The last and the one of the major emerging threats that we are facing in the world today is obviously the global warming, the rapid rise of temperature. So obviously both countries can have a tremendous partnership in the area of clean energy, and for that both governments have signed letter of intent on new and renewable energy in the February month of 2022, and which provides for cooperation toward bringing down the cost of renewable energy technologies, and especially this applies more for solar and wind energy, which India is looking forward to harness, and that is why India also is member of International Solar Alliance, of which Australia also is a member. And recently, India has announced a matching fund $10 million Australian dollars for the Pacific Island countries under the infrastructure for the island states. And similarly, few $1 million more has been given to the small island developing states of the Central Pacific Island, and this has been done in collaboration with the government of Australia. So there are some areas where both countries are continuously witnessing surge in the partnership and the relationship. So what we can say in conclusion of Indo-Australia relationship, that for a long period of time, at least till 1990s, due to mutual political neglect, ignorance of the commercial and trade possibilities, and also Cold War geopolitics, where the entire world was divided basically into two poles, limited the possibility of bilateral relations during the 20th century. However, in the recent years, we have certainly seen the end of this political neglect, and sustained high-level exchanges have provided much needed political momentum to the India-Australia partnership, which we expect to develop and grow manifold in the coming years and the coming decade. So I hope you understood about the brief overview of Indo-Australia relationship. If you like the video, please hit the like button, share it with your fellow aspirants, as well as subscribe to our channel for more such content. Thank you very much.